One of the tragedies is that we found around 12 horses shot in a little creek catchment, just a short distance.
In the water system.
In the water system. Now, this is the Murrumbidgee River. Tantangara is a dam in the Murrumbidgee River. It's the Murrumbidgee headwaters.
Mm-hmm.
Cooma gets its water from the Murrumbidgee. Canberra gets a lot of its water from the Murrumbidgee, as then does all the towns down that river system. And I've made the joke, I hope you're not vegan, because there's dead horse in your water.
And and realistically, you know, if we're talking multiple horses, this isn't one horse which wasn't shot very well and ran its way into the water and died. These are horses that were in the waterway that were targeted.
Correct. And it's actually worse than that.
Shot while they were drinking.
There's that, and that there is plenty of images of mothers with a foal at foot, and the mother's been shot and it's fallen over onto the foal. The foal is trapped under the horse. This is where we get into some of the ugly side of parks management and the current minister, Penny Sharp, for the Labor Party. And I openly wonder, does this woman have a heart? And has she ever looked at a horse in its eye?
Mm-hmm.
Penny, come to my property and there's 6 boys that'll happily talk to you and you can pat them. Make an account of yourself to them, because Penny has ordered ground shooting, helicopter shooting, and we have heard recently shooting them inside the traps, which is beyond torture when you think about that.
So once the first shot's gone off, they're crapping themselves and they're now injuring themselves
and they're
in a confined space trying to get out.
They're trying to survive in a trap where other horses are falling over and they can't get around to escape the bullets.
Yeah. And they're incredibly aware of their surroundings. They're a fully sentient being. They can tell. And that does not accord with the principles of ethical animal treatment.
Shocking.
And we have an organisation called the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. The RSPCA. And I would very much like the King Charles III, to step in and remove the word royal, because they don't deserve it. And this is a powerful thing. They've got a royal emblem and they've got a royal seal. It's a special organisation. And their charter is for the prevention of cruelty to animals. There was a helicopter shooting episode. It was a trial by the government in November. And they wrote a paper on it and just detailed it for us. And they shot 270 horses over 2 days. They had 2 national parks and New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Services helicopters branded. It's got NPWS on the side. I saw one yesterday. They used them over 2 days and they shot 270 horses. They used 2,032 bullets. The average number of bullets per horse was 7.5. So 7.5 bullets. And they weren't crap shooters that missed. That's the bullets that went into the horses. And the highest number of bullets in any horse was 15. So 15 bullets. These are NATO rounds, 7.62 by 51 millimetre NATO semi-automatic rifles. These are military rifles, military calibre. And a NATO round is designed to take out a human being, to either kill the human instantly or to wound the human with a recoverable wound. So shoulder, thigh, arm, through and through, the bullet goes in, bullet goes out. It's not designed to shoot a horse. Now, the Shooters, Farmers and Fishers Party, particularly Mark Benaziac and Robert Borsak as well, they have been asking the tough questions in the Parliament and around it. They have been so outraged by this report that they've referred the RSPCA and the National Parks and Wildlife Service to New South Wales Police. And at first blush, that seems weird. But when the RSPCA is the animal cruelty investigator, and you need to investigate the investigator, you have to refer it to another agency. This is a bit of the police policing the police problem.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to amount to much, because the police will always protect the government over the truth. But the RSPCA has now been referred by politicians in our parliament to be investigated for being a party to animal cruelty, and that is because they were in a third helicopter observing the shooting of the 270 as allegedly independent observers, remembering that the RSPCA gets millions of dollars a year from the government.
Wow.
There were 2 independent veterinarians, don't know who they are, I doubt they're independent.
What was their opinion of the day's performance?
No horses got away wounded, basically. There were no wounded survivors, and that was a great outcome. Now, that leverages back to the year 2000 with the Guy Fawkes National Park shooting, where some 600 horses were shot by the government, again, with military weapons. They didn't give a shit that they missed or gut shot them, or that they shot them and they ran off and they didn't chase them all down. Local farmers went out on horseback up in the Barrington Tops. It's pretty woolly country. And they found horses that were still alive, and some took 10 days to die. That was under Bob Carr and the Labor Party. And we, as a community and the government, vowed that there would never be helicopter shooting of animals, or particularly horses, again, until along came Penny Sharp and Chris Minns, and they couldn't wait to get the choppers in the air. And a special shout out to Steve Wan, the member for Monero. He would have paid for the petrol for the helicopters. He was that passionate about removing them. He could not see past his structural bias.
So there's blood on a lot of people's hands here.
You betcha.
It's soaking out of the park. And we've got some GIPA responses that there's been around, I think 1,200 shot, 800 removed for trapping. And of that trapping, I don't remember if we've got the breakdown between how many were rehomed and how many went to the knackery.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of dead horses now. And
and going back to the number of bullets, I'm a hunter, I believe you're a hunter. How many bullets should we be using to humanely put an animal down?
Ideally, 1. And if you hit the animal and just by chance you can graze a bone and move the bullet's trajectory and you don't get a kill shot, you get a second shot.
Yeah.
But not 15. And the shooters party, Mark Benasiak's a friend of mine, and I talked to him quite a lot. He was very, very keen to be involved, and he went to the rally at the Yagoona Animal Shelter for the RSPCA in Sydney just before Christmas, and he spoke in detail. And no professional hunters will be involved in this. So the working theory is that the national parks are bringing in contract hunters from other countries who don't have any affiliation or cultural respect, as it were, because they can't get locals. And if they are getting locals, they're not people I'm going to be friends with. They've got a screw loose, honestly.
Yeah.
I'd like to put into that. I know I've heard of a couple of fellas in Bombala that were actually asked to go up there into the KNP and shoot these horses. They declined. They said they would never, ever shoot a horse, let alone, for what they wanted.
Unless it was seriously injured and needed putting down.
That's correct. Yeah. And you get the opinions of vets too. And they can't believe what's going on up there.
So what happened is the New South Wales Parliament has an inquiry, and it's chaired by Emma Hurst, the Animal Justice Party, and that took a lot of lobbying. So one of the important cogs, and Di's going to love me calling her a cog, but one of the cogs in this whole machine is Di Hardley. And she's a lovely lady. She has cancer, and she's undergoing repetitive chemotherapy. And when she's not getting chemotherapy, she's out there fighting for the horses, and she's down in Cooma. She's down in Cosy Park. She is giving up potentially the last part of her life for the horses. This is a woman that lives on the Central Coast. So she's got some horses now down in Cooma on a good friend of hers property. And that's commitment. That's passion. That's spirit. And Di has been lobbying politicians, and she finally got some breakthroughs with an inquiry in the Parliament with Emma Hurst. And in that inquiry, I watched it. It was just before Christmas. the minister and the leader of the National Parks, a man called Atticus Fleming, were asked some pretty hard questions about this killing, because this particular 270 horse killing was quite relevant. And they were asked, is there any video or any photographs of this? No. And so that's your first hint. They're not going to allow what they're doing to be documented. And yet that should be their ethical obligation as public servants, spending public money on jet fuel, public helicopters, taxpayers' money buying the bullets. Any hunter will tell you that you can put these little cameras on your guns. They don't weigh anything. They don't interfere. And you can have a camera that also puts out the red laser dot, all in the same thing. So that got brought up by Rob Borsack, and they actually had hunters give that evidence. So this is the bit that really made it turn. The RSPCA inspector who was in the 3rd helicopter took up a chair under oath and was asked questions.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any photos or any videos? Yes. And everyone was shocked. Oh, really? Yes, he took photos and he has video. He was then directed to tender that to the inquiry. And we're making sure that that will be public. And he then tried to add a caveat to that and saying, I want to warn you, it's not pleasant viewing. Well, 15 bullets shot into a horse. If the government's going to be embarrassed by that, well, then don't bloody do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the listeners. It's pretty heavy, emotive sort of pictures. But unfortunately, this is now a matter of fact, and it's recorded in Hansard.
As it should be. Okay, so you guys and all your supporters are doing a fantastic job, and I guess everything you do, I do it for the Brumbies.